Welcome to the AI in Education podcast. Just sing the title this time. Ray, good morning to you. How are you, sir?
I am great, thank you, Dan, although a little bit perturbed by the fact you're singing at me this morning. You just finished module 4 on your improv course, Dan.
Yes, and there was no
I
singing
expected you to be making stuff up, not singing at me, because you've not been doing musical courses, have you?
No, not at all. I tell you what, I have been. I've been at EduTech this week.
Okay.
And that's been on in Sydney. That was an interesting event. Seen lots of people, seen lots of friends of the pod. There's been quite a few side events happening as well. So it's been good to catch up with people and connect and see some of the folks. There's lots of, the best bit of it was, around the edges on the perimeter of the event where there were people speaking about the projects they've been doing, like Lee from CathEd and Hayden from Siwa. And there's a whole heap of people that we know and friends of the pod who were talking there. Mark Bassett was up in the higher ed area. So lots of really interesting stories around the edge. Normal thing in the middle, vendor central. But yeah, it was good fun. There's a lot of interest in AI startups in education. So they got a startup alley funded by EduGrowth. There was about 30 different independent software companies there doing like assessment things and all kinds of things like that. So that was quite interesting to have a chat to them to see what they were doing with AI. It was all big platforms there.
We're literally at the Cambrian explosion stage of AI, aren't we? It's like,
yes.
There's just a massive growth of new things that will then homogenize a little bit later.
Yeah. Actually, the other thing around this week was Microsoft Build. We won't talk about it now because we've got lots of news to cover, but there was heaps of really interesting strategic stuff coming through from Build, things like Copilot inside Copilot and things like that. So we'll have to do an episode on some of the updates from Google I/O and Microsoft Build.
Do you know, it's really interesting, Dan. In my list of things I thought we should talk about this morning, I didn't include Build because I thought it was quite technical stuff. You're right. It's useful for the audience. I'm sure they'll go out and find stuff. But do you know, there was something really big that happened at Build that isn't a now thing. And that's why I didn't include it. Microsoft announced 7 new foundational models for different tools. Now, they're pretty good models. And to think that they've come out in a short period of time is really interesting. I think maybe in the last year or so, we've come to think that the baseline AI models are from ChatGPT, Anthropic, their Claude family, and DeepSeek we don't really talk about anymore. Meta models we don't talk about anymore. So, maybe Grok, which I'm not sure we should think about from an education context. But it's kind of a race across those different models. Now there's going to be a fourth player in the race because as Meta have kind of dropped away, now I think we're going to start to see Microsoft cooking with gas. And what is interesting about these new models is that they seem to be very efficient and effective in terms of cost efficiency and cost effectiveness. So I think that's going to put the game on because many of the headlines of the last 2 weeks have been about how now we're having to pay for the real cost of AI. It's getting more expensive. Now there's some cost pressure coming, I think, from future models.
Good point. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad we didn't put it in the list and end up talking about it, Dan. What a terrible mistake. Okay, it's a news and research episode, Dan. If we talk really fast, we might get to research, but I fear that we've got too much news.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Okay, let me take the first news item I picked up, which was China. China has launched a AI empowering education action plan. So what they want to do is they have said AI is going to be incorporated into teacher qualifications in both the exams and the certifications. And what they're going to do is expand AI education. So education about AI amongst both primary and secondary school students. China were already ahead of the game on this one. Now they are moving faster. I think it is really fascinating, the idea of including it into teacher qualification certifications.
Yeah, absolutely. I did a session last week actually around this with ACU, with pre-service teachers. So the people are building it into the pre-service teaching over here, but it's very random. And this is like a entire countrywide thing. So that is very good news for teachers being able to upskill. Yeah.
Yeah. So another piece of news I thought was interesting is who knew that copying Amazon would be the advice for education? Is an interesting thing. So over in the US, there was a court case between Amazon and Perplexity. So Perplexity are one of the AI providers, and they built something called a Comet browser, which allowed shoppers to use AI to go and do their shopping, right? So
Yep.
the user would say, I want to buy some socks, and the Comet browser would go off and do it. And what it allowed was the user could get the Comet browser to log in as them and order the socks for them. But Amazon didn't like this. They said that it was their decision about what they wanted to allow technology to do on their platform. So that by
That's
user
interesting.
sending their AI to the Amazon website, Amazon said that breaks their terms and conditions. So Amazon sued Perplexity. And Amazon won.
Wow. Okay.
So I think this is really interesting. This is all about shopping, Dan, but now it's all about education. So it's a really interesting thing, because if a platform provider can say, we do not allow our users to use this technology to access our website, does that mean that if you're Blackboard or Canvas, you could do exactly the same thing and effectively sue Perplexity or other AI providers if their students start using their AI agent to log into your LMS?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
There's a lot of agentic connections, say from Copilot into Canvas and things like that, where you can find out what you're doing.
Yeah.
But we talked about this in the last few days, actually, in some of the events that I was in. The next level, even further than agents, is when, and it was announced at Build as well, from a Microsoft perspective, is where there's going to be sessions that you can run on Windows, for example, that allow the computer or the AI to take over your credentials and log the things, so book flights and stuff like that, which is what the technology OpenClaw does, which is now being built into Microsoft Copilot as well. So taking control of your actual computer with your own credentials and booking a flight, that's the next level. It's going from co-work, where you ask it something and then leave and come back, to then being able to go, hey, I do need to buy those things, talking into your AI when you're in a car going, oh, damn, I forgot to do my shopping today, and doing my online shopping order and doing it for me, taking over my credentials, and then having this gate or this, I don't know, whatever, portcullis coming down from Amazon going, stop, you can't get into this is breaching our terms. There's really interesting implications for all of that.
It means that the control stays with the platform, not the user. So although the user might say, oh, here's my password, go and do this thing for me, go and do my course for me.
Yes.
Blackboard, Canvas, Moodle could block it. And obviously they'll have to keep blocking multiple things. Today it's Perplexity. Tomorrow it might be stopping Copilot from doing that. But geez, this is really important for education, because it is going to become so important as students are doing online learning that we have some control over them. And as an institution, you want to be able to say, I don't want my students logging on with an automated bot to my learning management system.
I think there's going to be a layer of AI which isn't there now, which is going to be a global standard, I'm guessing. This is my thoughts on it, where there's going to be almost like a trigger on individual websites which allow that use. It isn't there at the minute, but an Amazon can stop things. It may be part of the HTML code base or whatever, like web development stuff that's coming through, but it'll just stop things. So whether the bookings.com will allow you to do that, or Airbnb will stop you, I'm sure they're going to have to put some triggers in to allow and deny those kind of bots. But really interesting in that for education.
Yeah, and I think that fight will happen over in retail and travel bookings and stuff like that. But I can't think of a reason why an LMS provider would not want to block these. So that's good news, I think, for institutions. Hey, Dan, question for you. You travel quite a bit. What is somebody from Malta called?
Maltese person, like the Maltese Falcon.
Brilliant. Okay. I was so hoping they were called Maltesers, and they really aren't. But the reason for asking the question, Dan, is because Malta was in the news, because Malta has given every Maltese access to ChatGPT free. So they're giving their citizens the paid license for ChatGPT, but there's a catch, because they're only allowed it if they complete a training course in AI and responsible AI use.
Okay.
And the other interesting thing is the course isn't an open AI course. It's actually been designed by the University of Malta. So the program's called AI for All. And so what they are trying to do is upskill the whole country. Now, we've heard about different country programs for giving AI to all citizens or students or whatever, but this is really interesting because this is pairing the No. You can only have the tools if
If
you
you've done
take
training.
training.
Yeah. Well, and that's great, because it is a concern, and where educators and schools are starting to think now is also about educating their own communities. So when people are doing professional development for teachers and staff and administrative staff in schools, then it's also trying to bring in parent communities as well, because the entire adult population in Australia, for example, needs that support and that learning. So I love that.
Okay, here's another interesting story, Dan. Talking
Yes.
about giving everybody AI. So Harvard University, the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, has been giving students access to ChatGPT, Edu,
That's
and
good.
Google
Yeah.
Gemini.
Yes.
But what's coming out is that they have now also said you can have Anthropic Claude instead of ChatGPT. So this is I don't think we're heading towards a monoculture
Mm.
of, students, here is the system to use. Because I find that in my own use, I will use different AI tools for different purposes, depending on their skills and capabilities.
Mm.
But there's a really interesting story hidden a bit further down when they announced this in the article, which is one of the reasons they made that change is that they had low student uptake for the university provided ChatGPT licenses.
Mm.
Now, it isn't that the students didn't want to use ChatGPT. The reason is that students didn't trust the university. They thought that the university giving them ChatGPT was some kind of trick.
Yeah. Yes, we can monitor it. Yeah.
Yeah, so the students were worried that they were going to be caught cheating because the university had given them this tool and could see what they were doing.
Yeah, and we've talked about that in the pod in the past, haven't we?
Yeah,
But
and so despite them saying that isn't why we didn't that, and we're not doing that, that was the suspicion. Okay, here's the lesson from this news story. If you are going to give tools to your students, AI tools, they will be suspicious that it might be a Trojan horse. So sometimes you'll get yourself really wound up into, we have to give students all this access, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you don't. Maybe you need to give some students access. The Harvard initiative was around equity, making sure everybody had the same tool set. Well, maybe what you need to do is focus on a particular group that you need to provide access to, because a majority of students will not touch it with a barge pole because you've given it to them.
But the other piece in this news as well, when you're looking through it, is it feels a bit panic. Like, we'll give them ChatGPT. Oh, now there's a new model. We're going to give them Claude. Oh, there's a new model. We're going to give them Google Gemini. It's kind of like jumping around these things. And it seems a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. It's going to cost a fortune to subscribe to all of these different tools. And then even from a security or PII point of view, you're going to start to lose, you have to monitor 3 or 4 different tools as well. So it seems a little bit of a frenzy, but yeah, interesting article. So the next one here that you picked up was Anthropic forming a partnership with the Gates Foundation for $200 million.
Yeah, so they've provided $200 million in cash. They've given Claude usage credits and technical support for programs. And so what they're basically saying is we want AI to be used for good in some areas. So with the Gates Foundation, they focus on health, life sciences, education, and also economic mobility. So Anthropic have given them this massive grant to go and focus on that and see how AI can help in that way. I went straight in to see what they're doing in education. And in education, they're doing 3 things. The first is evidence-based AI tutors for school students in the US only. It's like, AI tutors must be the most obvious use case to help students. The second thing they're doing is career guidance for students. So how do you go from your education into the workforce? Again, US focused.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that happening around the world. Yeah, it's crystal ball gazing a little bit, but it's helping to strengthen that connection from higher education into the workforce.
And the other thing is, I think with lots of these things that we share on the news, is sometimes they're big numbers. I think we mentioned the Microsoft skilling thing, like in one of the episodes recently, and that was like $25 billion. This $200 million seems big, but almost with this AI thing now, we've lost focus on what big numbers are, because people are talking in the billions. And when I saw this at 200 million, I'm like, that's not a lot. Actually, it's a massive amount of money. But I think I've been desensitized to billions of dollars now rather than hundreds of millions. But that's a big chunk of money to get.
The interesting thing about this is there's cash. $200 million in cash. A lot of these
Yes.
big titles, their resources and efforts and things, their people time, their, $100 million or $100 billion worth of courses. That's
Yeah.
not the same as cash.
Yeah.
So the last thing they're doing
Good
is
point.
they're also putting some money into AI-powered apps for literacy and numeracy in Africa and India.
Oh, that's good. That's
No,
great.
so those 3 initiatives, like it or not, they're going to do them, and we'll get some outcome from that. So they're great experiment.
So that's AI tutors, career guidance, and then numeracy and literacy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
But then the other thing I thought was really interesting is they talked about creating public goods. So they talked about things like model benchmarks, data sets, knowledge graphs for tutoring or college advising or curriculum design. That's really interesting because they're going to learn things through these projects, and then they're going to release publicly things like benchmarks and data sets, which means that other people can learn from what they have learned and build on their success and avoid their failures.
Yeah. Yeah. That's nice. Yeah. I love it.
Okay.
So next one in here is the University of California, Berkeley School of Law banning, yes, you hear that right, banning AI. Wow.
Yeah. So what they've forbidden is the use of AI for conceptualizing, outlining, drafting, revising, translating, or editing any work submitted for credit.
It doesn't even lot left, does it?
It also bars students from uploading any of their course materials into generative AI. So I can't take my reading and pop it into ChatGPT and ask it to summarize it for me. And it limits the way that they are allowed to use AI for research down to things as helping them find cases, statutes, or secondary materials.
Okay.
And then they say, students remain responsible for verifying those sources, and the policy warns that citations to non-existent authorities will raise a presumption of prohibited AI use.
Right.
Okay, so get this. The next wave of lawyers being trained by the University of California are not allowed to use AI during their education.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because when you look at the actual legal profession, there's a lot of discussions and research and work, and actually people are using AI and agents very well in the legal profession when people are practicing. I know Microsoft released a new specific legal agent recently from our Sealer division, from Brad Smith and the team, who's our chief legal counsel. And it's an educational decision rather than, something that's kind of from the legal kind of standpoint, I suppose.
Yeah, so that's exactly it. So what the purpose of going to a law school is to develop your own judgment. And so they've said, we want to help students develop their own analytical judgment and not outsource their learning to AI. So spot on. I love this quote. Chris Hoofnagel, the faculty director, said, here's a key idea. In the classroom, we don't want students to write the best possible paper, but rather the best possible paper that the student is capable of.
Oh, I love that.
Don't you love it? Yeah, we don't want the student to produce the best paper because that encourages the use of AI to write the best paper. But we want you to produce the best paper that you can produce. Yeah, so all of that is great.
Yeah.
There's been some reaction to it out in the law world. Bob Ambrogi, a lawyer and a journalist, and on his Law Next website, he said there's a danger that students don't develop critical AI skills. And then if they go out as a summer associate into a law firm and that's the first time they're using AI, will they have the critical skills to use AI?
Yeah, absolutely. And you see it in education systems across the world. I remember in Sweden, when I took some teachers there years and years ago, like I've mentioned in the pod before, they give little kids hammers, nails, saws, and loads of polystyrene, and they're using actual tools. And they say, we'd rather them use the tools properly than give them like a play hammer and a play saw. And then they get into the real world and then they've got a scissors so they can actually cut things, and they can use it properly. So yeah, absolutely using the tools up there. But this is really interesting. Where do you think this is going to go? Do you think like long term that universities that actually don't use AI are going to have better efficacy with employers?
I've seen that debate. I've seen that there's a role for a university that absolutely doesn't allow AI use anywhere because students will come out with a different mindset. But Which is likely to be more employable? A student that comes out from a university that's banned AI, or from a university that's enabled AI and taught them how to use AI?
It's tough, is it? But I think there's a nuance in it. It depends on the subject, maybe. But again, though, sometimes there is an ethical thing around this where, from a human flourishing point of view, taken from Bazzi's thing earlier on, similarly with technology, some of the Sydney large independent schools make a point
Mhm.
of like not giving school kids mobile phones and dumbing it all down and giving them handsets that kind of limit things, or don't use technology at all in some schools. No laptops. Laptops are banned. Screen times are banned, and it captures the zeitgeist or whatever of what the community at large. So, yeah, it's an interesting one.
So, Dan, here we go. If you're a law firm, are you more likely to want to hire a graduate from a university that's banned AI, or
Mm,
from one that continues to allow AI use?
that's tough, isn't it? I'd have to do more investigation myself into the course,
Not
because
letting you
if
do that, Dan. I want to know.
you put me on pressure,
Yeah.
what would I do? Like, I would hire people who are using AI,
Yeah.
because I think they've got a tool that can speed up some of the legal processes that are happening, but it's more nuanced than just a yes or no, I think.
Yeah. So great. We can
Yourself?
come back in 5 years' time and find out, because the
You?
data will be out there at that point.
What do you think? Yes or no?
Um, yeah, I think as you enter into the job market, the fact that you've got strong AI skills, I think, is a strong signal to an employer that they are looking for those skills, and therefore it's a strong signal to your
But
employer.
we got a sort of parallel here as well, and we were like healthcare, because when they bring in like different drugs and different technologies and things like that, you know, legal stuff's important to obviously for precedent and the things for cases to put people in prison or whatever. But and case law can kind of bring that through. But with medicine, it's people's lives on the line, literally, and we do want our medical professionals to know the latest stuff. We don't want to out Google the doctor. We do want medical professions to be up to speed on the latest dental practices or eye surgeries. So, yeah, I think there's a precedent for medicine.
Hey, and part of that is about when and when not to do something. When and when not to give somebody a certain drug, when and when not to give them a certain treatment. It's exactly the same. When and when not to use AI would be just as important.
Yeah, true.
Okay, Dan, you said about students using phones,
Mm,
because we know that screen time has gone up massively.
yeah,
So here's a conundrum question. Why has Australian students' digital literacy gone down to now being at an all-time low?
wow. Well, yeah,
So they test digital literacy every few years. This is part of the national testing program. And the results for 2025 are the lowest levels since testing began in 2005.
yeah,
So students, kids, are using devices more, but it is not translating into them having the proficiency skills that they need.
yeah. But there's two elements to that. What we actually suggesting is proficient. Is that like, word processing or whatever it might be?
Mhm.
And then
Yep.
the other element is the thing that the headline grabbing statistic that people will jump on here is that, they just using their mobile phones to do
Mhm.
nothing and scroll and doom scroll. And it's just not really being helpful. Students and adults and the population generally is consumers of technology rather than creators and productive users of technology, right?
Yeah. Leads a question in my head of what are they doing with all this screen time? And I know my answer because I can look in my phone and it tells me where I'm spending my time. Social
Mm,
media.
yeah,
Talking of where they're spending their time, Harvard. So in the Harvard Business Review, there is a research program that is looking at what are people using AI for. They've been doing this for 3 years. And the way they do it is they do what they call social listening. So basically, they go out to TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, Reddit to find out what people are talking about they are using AI for.
Mhm.
So it isn't looking over the shoulders of 10,000 people. It is looking at 50,000 data points
Yeah,
discussed online. So there'll be a bit of a bias in there because some use cases I suspect people would never talk about.
yeah.
But the number one use for AI is therapy/companionship.
That's interesting. That's come up for a couple of years now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's number one last year as well.
Yeah, I mentioned that when I'm speaking to teachers and things to say about when I'm talking about Copilot in this case, the
Hmm.
consumer tools and the business tools. Like one of the statistics that came out of Mustafa Suleiman's org, Microsoft AI, was saying that the consumer tools are being used the majority of the time for healthcare.
Hmm. Now, number 2, you, Stan, up
Number
from
two,
16th place last year is troubleshooting.
right?
I think that's a change of behavior because previously, if I wanted to know how to repair something, I'd go to YouTube.
Yeah.
Now I do find myself asking ChatGPT.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, same. Yeah,
Yeah.
what have you asked for something useful recently? What have you asked for any advice on? Here we go.
Well,
I'm putting you under pressure here. I'm trying to think what I've done as well. Oh,
um,
I'll tell you
oh,
mine while I'm there. I was like, I pulled up in the car with Tom the other day, my son, and I saw like what I thought was an oak leaf. He asked me, "Well, what tree is this?" Actually, rolling back a bit, he said, "What tree is that?" And I grabbed my phone out and I did the AI thing, and I said, "What tree is this?" And I said it was some kind of random tree, and he said, "Oh, I thought it was an oak tree because we live on Oak Hill Drive or whatever." And I'm like, "Okay." And then I was walking to a meeting with ISU South Wales the other day, and I saw what I thought was an oak leaf, right? And I put my AI on randomly walking around Sydney, and I was like, "What leaf is this?" And it told me it was a maple leaf. And now my entire, so I was troubleshooting leaf types because I was like, I'm convinced in my mind that I knew what an oak leaf was, and it wasn't an oak leaf, Ray. It was a maple leaf. So I'm like now devastated because this ruined my entire knowledge of leaves. Anyway,
I've used it.
random.
I've used it recently for a medical conversation to do with post-operational
Oh, yeah,
swelling.
yeah.
And the question was, well, how long is it going to last for? What I found really interesting was I could have gone to Google,
Mm,
but I went to AI because I could have a continuing conversation to start saying, okay, so how do I deal with this and give me some advice? Now, the right answer would have been to ask the doctor, but the doctor was not available. And the doctor already felt that it explained everything I needed to know. And so I had a patient experience as a patient that allowed me to have that conversation and build
yeah.
my confidence in it rather than a quick to grab conversation. And also, it was much more accessible to me than me going and reading 5 different websites to see the answer.
Well, just to expand that health one a bit more. When I showed the other day when I was presenting to some medical folks in university, I showed a real life one for me and it builds out in Australia for the people abroad. You go and get blood tests quite easily in Australia and you get a text message to say, go and see a doctor. I had this text message, so the entire builds out, which I showed medical practitioners and probably horrified, but it builds out where the text message comes through. Then my doctor's meeting, which was, hey, Dan, you've got high cholesterol. Stop drinking red wine. Stop eating red meat. Drop alcohol. Do exercise. Blah, 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 blah. And then do a blood test in 6 weeks and see what happens. And instead of just doing that, I went on to my AI, kind of started to talk to it about what other things I could do in my lifestyle, what types of foods are good. It was explaining to me and educating me on trans fats and saturated fats and triglycerides. Doctor didn't tell me about any of that. It was just asterisk on the blood test. So I found myself educating myself onto what high cholesterol was, put in place more specific dietary stuff rather than just red meat and alcohol and things. And I didn't Google it, it was AI'd. And it came up with a plan for me. And I said, I want to do this in like 6 months. Give me a plan on what I could do over 6 months so I could keep myself kind of honest. Then I went back for a blood test. This was in like February. And then a text message came back, the same kind of thing. And it said, congratulations, your blood test results are back and you do not need to see the doctor anymore. Right. So I'm like, okay, so I haven't seen the doctor, but I had a copy of the test results and I put that into my AI. And the AI basically said, actually, you're not out of the woods here. Your cholesterol's come down, but you need to do another 6 month plan here because this level was high and that level was high. And there was like lots of nuances in there that the co-pilot that I was using had picked up. The doctors basically said, cheerio, you're done. Whereas the AI's gone, no, there's things in here you need to keep looking at. So yeah, really, really interesting troubleshooting the body, but also that health and therapy kind of side.
there will be people listening to this that would be horrified.
Yes.
The thing to remember is, let's go back. What was it, 2 years ago, when Ethan Mollett was talking about the best available human? It's not, is this as good as the best human? It's, is this as good as the best available human? And it turns out, Dan, that in your scenario and in mine, the best available human isn't available.
Correct.
So it is better than the best available human. It is taking you on a positive journey. It may not be 100% accurate, but we know that humans aren't 100% accurate as well.
Yeah, very true.
But
Very
it's available. So
Yes.
more people will discover that, more people will find it using it for things. Okay,
More-
let's whiz through some other stuff a bit more quickly. The Walton Family Foundation. So they did some research across teachers in the US. It's a good analysis. I'd encourage people to go and read the report. There were 2 things that jumped out at me. 4 out of 5 teachers don't receive formal guidance about using AI in their teaching.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Right.
They don't get guidance from their school about how to use AI.
Yes.
Formal. And 2/3 receive no guidance at all about how to apply AI to one-on-one instruction.
Yeah.
So, how you might use it as a coach or whatever with a student, or how you might personalize materials. There's some good stuff in there, but it just continues to show that gap between adoption first, training later.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Again, we've seen that a lot, haven't we? The PD gap. The next one, which when you sent me in WhatsApp, it did make me chuckle. From the "you couldn't make this up" department. This is
So, Dan, 10 days ago, an academic, Kylie Moore Gilbert, wrote a piece in the Sydney Morning Herald. So anybody listening to us outside of Australia knows exactly where we're talking about. The Sydney Morning Herald is the paper for Sydney. And the warning was that students could now outsource so much of their learning to AI that Kylie didn't know whether to recommend her children go to university or not. So I read it. It was a bit of a divisive piece. There's a lot of opinion in there, but some interesting questions that have to be asked, I think. Anyway,
Yeah.
Professor Kath Ellis, who is described as one of Australia's leading academic integrity experts, wrote an opinion piece in response, where she basically urged students not to use AI to do their own work.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that article had to be pulled after it was revealed that AI wrote it.
That's
Or helped write it.
Yeah.
Now, here's a twist. The Sydney Morning Herald, the newspaper it was published in, has very strict guidelines on AI use that bars it from being used to write stories for publication.
Yeah.
So this sounds to me a bit like an assessment thing, which is not allowed to use AI, students, and people do anyway. Now, this isn't just they thought it had been written with AI. The university said, yes, AI was trained on 40,000 words of her own writing, and it was used to organize and draft ideas she already held. Now, Professor Ellis said she wrote down some thoughts on the train coming into work, and then she asked her AI assistant to pull them into a coherent structure. I mean, that sounds to me like something you would tell students they shouldn't do. The uni team said they used it to support editing, structure, and language refinement. I mean, that sounds like you using AI to write.
Very nuanced again, isn't it? Wow.
So here's the difficulty. Somebody says you shouldn't send your kids to university because AI is ruining the experience. The response to that has been written with AI and against the rules of the publication.
Yeah.
Here's the question that I think schools and universities are still struggling to answer. When does AI become a writing assistant? And when does it become a substitute for the work itself?
Yeah.
Is spell check an assistant that's okay? Is editing, structure, and language refinement okay? No, probably not. It's always fascinating when these kind of cases come up. They're things we can learn from. There's probably a pile-on going to happen to the academic, which is so unfair because it will have happened a bunch of times. But it's part of that adjustment we're making as society to the role that AI plays. We don't know what AI's role is going to be.
Yes.
And boy, are we in a uncomfortable position until we can work it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's some fun to go with that then, Dan.
I love this website, Ray. This is so good because I've been using Leon's and yours image generation thing to share bias, and the stuff from some of the other folks around, like Victoria Headland and stuff like that, to show that bias. But this is around text, right? Which is
Yeah.
something
So
that teachers always say they can spot AI generated text.
yeah, and the problem in the last example happened because somebody went, that pattern looks really familiar in AI writing. There's a website called fakewriters.onrender.com. Link will be in the show notes. It's a beautiful little website. You go in every day, you're given 6 questions, and they are basically a short passage of text. And you have to work out whether that random bit of text is from a real famous writer or it's been written by AI. Sounds easy, Dan.
Yeah. I just did it. I had 2 out of 6.
Wow, Dan,
I had 2 right.
I would have been better doing that with a coin than I would asking you.
Yeah.
So there's a great little exercise you can use with your colleagues on a professional development day.
Absolutely.
Then people go, yeah, but I can spot AI writing. Just send them over to that and see who gets more than 50% accurate.
Yeah.
But also, if I was doing that in a CPD session, I would also have a coin at the front of the room that I would have it do the
That
exercise.
would be so good. Yeah, absolutely. That is good. That's really good.
Okay, Dan, we have run way over. So let's just finish with one techie thing and we'll hold the research till next time. So this is a bit geeky, but I think really important. Jason LaGracca, we used to work with Jason at Microsoft. He then went into working for some universities. He's now doing a lot of really cool AI stuff.
Very good stuff.
He wrote something called How to Break Your Chatbot. Now, this isn't for everybody, but this is so genius. So if you are building a chatbot for education, the users of that chatbot might be on your side, like you build an internal agent that helps you make sense of policies.
Yeah.
Or they might be on the other side, which is, I think, anything you build for a student. Because if you're building something for a student, or in business, you're building something for a customer to use, they have different incentives. Internal users have incentives to stay on the right side of the chatbot.
Yes.
You know, tricking a chatbot into telling you it's okay for you to take a sick day for your cat's wedding is something you might regret later, so you don't try to.
Yeah.
But if you're an external
idea, though.
user, like you're on a car website and you can negotiate with the chatbot to get the right price, you've got an incentive to try and trick it to offer you a $1 car,
Yes.
which has happened, Dan.
Yes, I know. I remember we were saying that before. Yeah.
But if you're a school giving a learning assistance to students, then the users have definitely got an incentive to break it. So Jason wrote an article, How to Break Your Chatbot, which is a series of tests that you should give to an AI agent in order to test that it can't be easily defeated by students. And Jason published this, like everybody to read.
Yeah.
Incredibly, incredibly useful. And I think if you are building AI chatbots for students' use, go and read it. If you are releasing a framework, Jason put the new Microsoft chatbot through this same framework.
Yeah, the study one. Yeah.
And if you are deploying a chatbot, somebody else's chatbot, to your students in your school, you know, somebody's convinced you that this chatbot is the world's best chatbot and your students need it straight away, get the article and test it through those things. You wouldn't hire a teacher and put them in front of your students if you didn't know how they were going to treat their students. And yet, sometimes you're deploying technology to students that you don't quite know what it's going to say to students. This is a great template to test that out.
Yeah.
I would say it is probably unethical to deploy a chatbot without doing some tests like this.
Yeah, and just calling Jason out again. I saw him yesterday at EduTech, actually. I caught up with him. We were just wandering around and like we caught up with each other. And he's such a great guy and he's putting such good content out at the minute around a whole heap of things about educational AI and educational technology generally. I urge everybody to follow his Substack because it's really relevant. He's got a good way of approaching that from an educational point of view. So it's really, really interesting. But he's also doing, like I said, some really deep, cool stuff around AI and startups and things like that as well. So definitely follow him.
Yeah. And I think if you're a teacher and you have no control over this stuff, just run the tests with your own chatbot. If somebody in your IT department said, oh, we're giving this to students, or they've given it to students, you could use this test list to try it yourself.
I'd use it as a learning point anyway. If I was teaching, I'd be encouraging kids to push the limits of the chatbot to see what it can do. We do it in our innovation hub in in Microsoft headquarters in Sydney, we've got like several different chatbots that are programmed to like not give you the password basically, but you can get around it, and it trains you in the ways that third parties often do social engineering to get around things. So there's a bit of an education piece in going, did you know that, lots of people name their passwords after their dogs, or it might be after their names, or it's a combination of things and whatever. And then gives you that information. Then you go into the chatbot thing and you try to jailbreak the password out of it. And there's multiple levels you can go through. So yeah, really, really interesting. And Jason, legend.
So the story from the academic writing the opinion piece with AI came from the "you couldn't make it up" department.
Yes.
I think this comes from the "I can't believe it's free" department. It's incredibly useful. So Jason LaGreca, how to break your chatbot. Just great stuff. And we'll put all the links in the show notes.
Yeah. Thanks again, Ray. We'll have to catch up on the research in the next episode.
There's so much to talk about there as well, Dan.
Yes. Thanks, Ray.
Bye.